Happiness is a very confusing thing. As humans, we have more and more of our needs met, and I can even amuse myself all evening with the click of a few buttons or order food that my ancestors couldn't even have dreamed up. Yet also, as humans, we now spend $20 billion a year on antidepressants, and suicide is the second leading cause of death in American teenagers. Apparently, the self-help industry is worth $60 billion, and I'll be the first to tell you that you can't find happiness in a book, conference, course, or even a podcast episode. This episode today, sadly, will not make you rich, it won't make you sexy, and I can't promise much more than the comforting sound of my voice for half an hour. But I will present a few unconventional little ideas on the topic of happiness that have helped me and might do a small part on your own journey. So hello and welcome to the Growth Mindset Psychology Show with me, Sam Webster Harris, looking into the science of self-improvement with a side serving of philosophy to help you ponder what a life well lived means to you and build it. Today's episode is in two parts where we start with the self-help industry obsession with the power of now and what the real problem is with our nowish mentality. Then in the second half, we revisit some advice from an old episode 2 years ago with 6 small and very actionable pieces of wisdom that can be put into practice straight away that deserve to be more well known and have made a bit of difference to my own happiness. All coming up. We whiz through life one moment at a time. The wisest of the wise remind us that now is all we have. The saying that the past is history, the future is a mystery, but now is a gift. And that is why it's called the present. And if you've looked into self-help or philosophy much, you will be aware of the importance of living in the present and the power of now. And I'm, of course, a huge advocate of the power of now. But for the sake of clear thinking, today I'm going to look at the opposite side of this argument. One of the other greatest pieces of wisdom that I've learned is that writing and advice is always one-sided. And there'll usually be a perfectly good and reasonable truth than things that you can learn from the opposite side of things that you might learn in a book that's trying to tell you one thing. So all this focusing on one single moment, albeit the one as it happens, we're going to start with inspecting the tunnel vision nature of humans. After all, humans are focused on only a tiny amount of things. Our vision is focused on only a very small single point, for example. The fovea in your retina creates the only part of vision with clarity, and the rest of it is just peripheral blur. Similarly, your mind really only tackles one thing at a time with any clarity. And you can handle some peripheral stuff on autopilot, but consciousness is mainly in one place doing one thing. And so is our life. Our life is lived in this one focused moment with a bit of thinking forwards and backwards. But it's pretty clear that all of our existence is only ever in this one very tiny slice of momentary time. And as a human, you are stuck in the tunnel, and that is the portal of your life and all of your future selves forever. So thinking about now is, of course, important. But then why would you want to escape now? It's common saying that all of our thoughts around trying to escape now is a bad thing and that we want to spend our time looking into philosophy and meditation to really center ourselves in the now. There's a stigma against thinking outside of now, which for the most part is accurate because I think that most of our thinking outside of now is just the peripheral outer edges thinking of like now-ish, as I would call it. And I think all our frustrations that this philosophy of meditation tells us to stop worrying about are the now-ish things. So pining over losses recently or things that we're hoping for in the future, like tomorrow, next week, all of these unrealistic things are forgetting to be happy now. But this skips the fact that most of our non-present thinking, we're often thinking about what do I say next? What am I going to have for dinner? What will I be doing next week? Will I go nuts if I continue doing this job for the rest of this year? Our thinking really rarely breaks out of the next few years. So the problems with obsessing outside of present now are usually in these now-ish areas of time. So this doesn't include things like, what about in 5 years' time or 30 years' time? What about thinking of what you're going to do with your lifetime? Or like after you're dead? Who considers how much their life is going to contribute to the next 1,000 years of humanity? And I think actually now is important, but also the long term is really important. And part of being present in the now is knowing how your present life ties into your long-term future. A great writer who I love reading is called Nat Eliason, and he really encourages 30-year thinking, where you look at your routines, your hobbies, your job choices, and ask if you still want to be doing them for 30 years. And if these activities are really contributing to who you want to become. We all have work that energizes us and work that drains us, yet we'll often skip the work that we love doing to do the other things often that drain us because it isn't prioritized. Long-term success comes from compounding and nurturing our talent over time. The work that we can stick with in the long term is work that energizes us. So if we really want to truly achieve, it might mean saying no to more conventional things that pay better right now in the moment, and our current day-to-day priorities are actually clouding our real purpose in life and the things that are going to help us achieve our best outcome for success. Nat says that finding energizing work is more beneficial than setting long-term goals. A goal might be fulfilling for a moment as it's reached, but that sense of contentment quickly fades. If you don't enjoy the process, checking off the goal after goal becomes tiresome. So mastery comes from sticking at something over a very long time, as we know. Most people can learn 80% of a skill very quickly. If you keep jumping around and changing, you won't ever become exceptional at anything. Thus, the questions you should be asking yourself are, what do you want to be doing in 30 years? And is that really reflected in how you spend your time today? And there are some other ways to really apply this 30-year thinking, and I think it's so helpful. So let's imagine that you want to be a great writer. Then that means you should write every day today. Look at your time and be honest about how much time goes into your true skills and passions. If you're writing, for example, and you're not writing all the time, that's a sign that you really do need to change. And it's easy to make excuses for putting things off, but that's not at all the definition of living in the moment. That's just being lost in now-ish, with your peripheral moments of things and priorities overtaking what you actually should be doing right now. Being in the moment is making hard decisions and choosing a really interesting life over an easy life. Now, it's important to remember that 30-year thinking extends over just skills and work. Are your friends 30-year friends? Will they grow alongside you and challenge you and learn with you? Will your kids play together while you support and inspire each other? Or are your friends just kind of convenient, people that are just helping you with your peripheral now-ish things that aren't really the kind of people that you expect to build a whole life with? Is your lifestyle a 30-year lifestyle? Are your health choices and exercise? Now, health choices and exercise compound over the years, and putting those things off now will just accrue problems later. Investing in learning to enjoy cooking healthily for yourself will pay back in dividends in this age of convenience. And on the subject of cooking and health and friends, having a group of friends that gather in your home to share dinner is infinitely better than going to a restaurant, for example. So back to Nat Eliason, he gives a few questions that you can use to really help you with the 30-year thinking idea and how to apply it to your life. He says that 30-year thinking can provide clarity that you didn't realize you had about how you should spend your time. Is this work something I want to improve at for the next 30 years? Is this person someone I want to see weekly for the next 30 years? Is this habit or ritual something I want to do for the next 30 years? Is this how I want to spend my money for the next 30 years? Is this a topic I want to read about for the next 30 years? And is this how I want my body to look or feel for the next 30 years? All of these areas are so important. And what I really like, so Nat Eliason, after doing this, he's now started doing a great books project where he's literally gone from like the top, I think, 1,000 books that you should read in your lifetime. And he's gone with like the very oldest book. And he's just starting there from like 5,000 years ago, like the Odyssey and stuff. And he's just slowly coming up to now. And he's just reading book by book. And I think his approach to like how to read as well as how to spend time with your friends, how to live healthily and cook and everything, it's just things that you would really do now if you were thinking long term at the same time. Now, of course, people do change over time. If you're thinking about like who you want to spend time with as your friends or what your tastes and interests are. And that does mean that you might not have perfect answers right now to some of these questions, but a good question should help you notice the many imperfections that you have in your current answers so that you can improve them. Because ultimately, many of our now-ish decisions will not match your true long-term desires, and that should change how you act in the now. It's said that it's very easy to fall into the one-day trap, believing that once you make some more money, once you have more time, once you finish this project, suddenly you'll be free of the obligations standing between you and your ideal self that you want to become. But one day never comes. We have to start creating our one-day ideal self now, because it'll never happen otherwise. Another really important aspect about this that I think this really helps with is that it's because it's so easy to get caught up with what we're doing at the moment without thinking about the long-term things that we want to be doing, that we get surprised as the years flash by and the thing that we're working on now is still something we're working on in years to come. And if you are writing a blog or doing a podcast or running a business or you're in a job, our focus of attention is always on the now-ish things, the next step, and we don't see the bigger picture. And there's a really great question for this that could be the topic of like an entire episode. But the question is, am I doing something because I want to keep doing it or because I don't know how to stop? And whether you're chasing that next promotion or trying to grow your audience for your blog or your podcast or your YouTube channel, we often aren't stopping to think what would happen if we opened our mind to the possibility of just doing something very different. Because you could be doing a podcast that could be growing much faster and be making you more excited and give you more fun at the time. The thing you're doing right now might be going okay, but is it the thing that you really want to define you for the next 30 years? Does it actually have the potential for the success that you think you deserve and that you're looking for? So would working in a completely different career actually be better for you, or just a different company? Would writing on a different topic or under like a different concept make your writing grow much faster? Stopping is such a hard thing to do when you have momentum, but it can actually allow you to go so much faster when we embrace that it's just a gear change. So, in summary, the present is important and we should really try to be in the present, but part of that, I think, is thinking long term and going way outside of just like next day, next week, next year, and thinking like 30 years time, and then letting that help us decide what we really want to be doing with our lives for the long term, and then bringing that back to the now and really being in the now by knowing that we're doing something that's really investing in our future and is the kind of now that we want to live in every day for the majority of our lives.
Okay, now the first half of the episode is over. We're going to have a quick advert break before we come back with the second half of the episode and the 6 actionable ideas for happiness that we can put into practice straight away, that are surprising little ideas that do make a difference in your day-to-day moments. The episode is a fun flashback to an episode I recorded 2 years ago whilst I was in Nepal doing a mountain guiding qualification, which is awesome and gave me a few unconventional ideas to throw in the mix. But all of the advice is super timeless, which is why I'm bringing it back now today. So I will catch you on the other side.
They say that happiness is a choice and that it depends on ourselves. But happiness can only happen when what we think, what we say, and what we do is in harmony. And that doesn't mean it's easy to achieve by any means, but it does mean that so much of happiness is within our control. Often, some of the reasons we become unhappy is that we get stuck in loops of things that seem very important or urgent things, and we can succumb to fear and negativity, all of which makes it harder to cultivate a positive mindset. It often feels like only achieving some radical change or large milestone in the future, that once we reach that, we will finally unlock true happiness and be able to relax. But often, it's actually something that's much more subtle, it's much more unexciting. It's like the little things in life that really make a big difference and a lasting difference over the course of every day of your life. So I thought today I would go through some of the smaller things that you can use with intention that will actually genuinely make you a slightly happier person. Because when you add all these little nudges up, it can really move the needle to be a more positive person. And when you become more positive, you become more content and more resilient. And who doesn't want that? I'm going to cover 6 phrases that you can actually use that will genuinely make you a happier person by just changing the type of dialogue and discourse that you have with other people and that you have with yourself. And to crack right into it, we'll start with the first one. And that's by saying the phrase, I get to, instead of saying I have to or I must. This is a really powerful way to start cultivating a mindset of gratitude and opportunity. when you don't have to go to the gym, but you get to go to the gym, if you don't have to see someone about your back pain, but you get to, you realize that it's not something that should be taken for granted, like the fact that you have someone available who's there to help you with your back pain. And even though you may be annoyed and depressed about your back pain, it's still an opportunity to do something better that like some people in the world don't have. This is the benefit of living in the modern day with the most advanced medicine to this point in time available in human history ever. Whereas most of us don't think about these little things and we're like, oh, my back hurts, I just have to go and like sort this out. When actually it sounds like a really terrible chore and like we're having a bad day. We don't realize how much luck there is in our life for us to be grateful for. Again, you don't have to check in on your screaming toddler that you thought was asleep. You get to check in on them. And that reminds you that in a few years' time, you might miss the fact that you get to hug your toddler whilst they're crying, and realizing that one extra night might be good for both of you to hang out as opposed to being annoyed about these things. And it's genuinely the same for any kind of chore that you kind of have in your list of chores or things that feel like a burden. Maybe like getting exercise or eating healthy food feels like a difficult thing for you and you'd rather sit around and eat cake. But people are already approaching the entire thing like it's a negative, terrible thing. When instead, if you frame it as you get to work out or you get to eat this nice healthy food, it's a choice that you're actively taking and you're recognizing the opportunity in your life for all these things that you could be doing that are better. No, in the same way, like I run this podcast. Now, I have to record this podcast before I go trekking for the next 2 weeks and I can't record any podcasts. But in the same way, I get to record this podcast, which is a nice thing to do this afternoon whilst I'm talking about happiness. And in general, I get to run a podcast where if I do my work ahead of time, I can go and take 2 weeks off and go running around the bloody Himalayas. And that's awesome. And instead of being like annoyed that I'm not going around some local village this afternoon, I'm like, yeah, I'm pretty grateful for the fact I get to record this podcast and that it's actually a wider part of the whole experience here in the Himalayas that I'm getting to do. So anyway, instead of saying I have to, say I get to. And now phrase number 2. What was your rose? This is something that we've been doing every night here in the Himalayas as part of this mountain guiding course that I'm doing for 3 months. And it's genuinely a lovely experience for all of us. And everybody knows that gratitude makes people happier and also physically healthier. And using this thing that's called the rose, thorn, bud game with others is a really nice way to incorporate gratitude into your day and connect with others. So a thorn is a problem that you had, something that didn't go your way, something that's like a bit annoying. And you might be like, oh, saying anything negative is bad. But it can be nice to tell others why you had a bad day and what's wrong. It also gives you a chance to get things off your chest. And then you say your rose, which is any wins for the day, highlights, simple pleasures. And sure, when days are really going your way, all you'll have is roses and you won't have any thorns. And that's really nice as well. Often when you talk about some of the thorns that you have, you'll recognize some of the opportunities for the roses, the good moments of your day as well that came from the thorns. Like maybe your feet hurt, but someone helped you out with some like spare socks or something. And you're like, oh, there was a bad thing, but actually you've become grateful for all the good things that are happening around you at the same time. And then a bud is something that you want to do more of. Okay, this is a cool thing. I want to grow this thing into like more of a project, like maybe doing solo episodes on my podcast is a bud. I want to do more solo episodes. Maybe going hiking is a bud. I want to become better at hiking and lead more hiking expeditions, etc. But it genuinely is like a really nice thing to do with others. And doing it with our whole group here in the Himalayas, it's been a really nice way for us to hear about other people's highlights and their problems and to just share the things that make you smile every day. If you've never done it before, it might feel like a little bit forced to start with, like just to make it happen. But as soon as you start going, it's really nice. And we've had some of the days off here where there's been no reason to do it. And we'd be like, oh, should we do it? And people are like, oh, why would we do that? And then we do it. And everyone's like, oh my God, it was so nice to be able to talk about the things that they did that was like a spectacular day because it was a day off and they went and did something silly. And it's a really nice way for everyone to tell each other stories and just not sit around being bored. It's great. And makes you more grateful because you just recognize the things in your day to be grateful for. In the same way that they say you should journal or meditate each evening to gather more gratitude for your day, actually just talking to people about what you're grateful for is an obvious thing to do and actually a really nice thing that I really would recommend to anybody. And on the subject of talking to each other, the third phrase to use is tell me more. So if someone opens up about something that they care about, and they might often have a problem that they're trying to explain. Now, humans naturally want to help others, but usually when they're helping others, they'll want to solve their problems or give them advice. Now, instead of jumping to solving someone else's problems, we can simply say the words, tell me more. And by doing that, we are freely offering our time and our energy to listen to them. Now, this opens up space for the other person to process their feelings with that person, process their thoughts, and it's a much better way of deepening a relationship with someone and bringing you closer. Because if you tell people what to do, it makes them feel like you think that they are stupid because they don't understand what to do. And it gives the appearance that you think that you know best and are just much better than them at everything, rather than that you care about them and caring about how they feel. Even though you might care about them and you're trying to solve their problems for them, it just by proxy makes them feel a bit stupid. So by letting them open up first and listening to them, you're offering them your time to help them work out what they should do about their problem. Or maybe they just want to get some things off their chest and feel heard and listened to. Often, just having someone listen to what your problems are makes the whole thing less of a problem. So before you jump in with a solution, ask yourself if this person needs a solution or if they need soothing. As a general rule, just start with asking them to tell you more before you give any solutions. Next phrase, number 4. This is the classic growth mindset one, which is finishing your sentences with the word yet. Now, this is a fundamental growth mindset turn of phrase. And whenever you say any form of negative statement, you should always finish the sentence with the word yet. I can't do it yet. I don't have enough money yet. I'm not talented or clever enough yet. By adding this little word to the end of any sentence that begins with the words I don't, I can't, I'm not, etc., it's really powerful. And even if you just think it inside mentally, the word yet just keeps the door of possibility slightly open. And the phrases that we're using when we say, oh, I can't do this, I'm not good enough at that. When we say these things, we're trying to shut the door of possibility. We're blocking off that path for the rest of time, saying that we're just never going to walk down it, we're never going to be able to. But by saying the word yet, we're keeping it open. We always keep the element of opportunity to do better, to go further down that path. And the word yet just makes it clear that there's possibility in your future that you will overcome the current problems, the current blockers. It's just a matter of time and work to get there. I can't climb Everest yet, but I could. And that's an exciting and motivating thought for me to keep going with trekking and becoming better at the whole mountain guide thing. And now the word yet and general possibility opening is something that's great to also use with kids because it helps them learn to turn setbacks into opportunities to learn more. I'm not good at maths yet. I can't dance yet. I don't like doing art yet. And you might annoy your kid by saying this, but after a while, it will seep into their consciousness and it will change the way they see possibility and how they see themselves and what they can achieve. Number 5 is asking yourself, will this thing matter a year from now? This is a question that relates to a topic I've often spoken about on the podcast, which is the value of zooming out. And when you use the question, if this will matter a year from now or even 5 years from now, it really gives you some more perspective. As humans, we get so caught up in the moment or just stressing about like tomorrow or yesterday, and our emotions can often overwhelm us with worry and panic, and we'll feel like a situation will be a major problem for like the whole of our life. When actually, it's something that really won't matter in a year's time. And if we thought about something that happened similarly like a year ago, we've probably completely forgotten about it, and it's not that important. And yet we just don't see the opportunity for being calm. Anxiety is an emotion that's increasingly common these days, and it happens to so many of us. And just even little things like showing up 10 minutes late or forgetting to email a colleague and worrying that you're going to look dumb emailing them 1 week late, etc. That happened to me all the time to the point where I basically stopped emailing people because I stopped having a job. Or other examples like not getting a reply from a friend that you text and you're just worrying what's going on. When you start to notice that you're feeling some stress and feeling some anxiety and it's weighing you down and it's perhaps slowing you down as well, just take a deep breath and think about the situation at large. Will this thing that you've got caught up about actually matter a year from now? Even breakups don't matter perhaps a year from now and you'll be grateful for them, etc. So when you zoom out and ask yourself if this really matters in the long term, and when you give yourself space to zoom out and ask yourself if something will truly matter in the long term, it's important to just try and hold that concept in your head of the fact that it's not the end of the world and bring that back to you into the present and just show up with some more positivity and awareness that a lot of the little things aren't something to panic about, aren't something to stress about, aren't something to be angry about or anxious about, and that there's not that much long-term serious situations that you actually encounter with day to day that are really going to ruin your life. And it just makes you feel a little bit more chilled out, more happy, more willing to just engage with what's going on and take some risks. And it helps you remember that there's plenty of future opportunities coming down the road for you to change things in a positive way. So remember when you're getting overwhelmed, just to ask yourself if this will truly matter a year from now. And then lastly, we have the phrase, I will focus on X. Now, as I've said, the modern day is filled with anxiety. It's also filled with distraction. Text messages, social media, 3 different email addresses, or maybe 10 different email addresses, pinging calendar notifications going off and off and off, and just lots of different events and crazy news going on in the world. And then, of course, there's the things that actually engage you positively and the things that you want to learn. And it's an endless list. Even though there is an endless list of things you could be doing, it doesn't have to be an infinite hill that you have to just keep on climbing and keep on climbing every day. Distraction and decision fatigue make it a lot harder to be happy, makes it a lot harder to be effective, and just reduces your overall sense of well-being. It genuinely makes sense to reduce your options and just focus on fewer things. Instead of bouncing around the day from one thing to the next, take a minute, write down what you need to focus on just for today as your biggest single thing, and just make sure that you do that thing and just don't think about anything else until it's done. When you plan out your main focus task for the day, instead of having multiple things eating into each other, it keeps you reliable at completing one important thing. And it's massively stress relieving to feel a sense of progress when that thing gets done, and to feel like you just know that each day you are going to get something useful done. Because often when we're bouncing around so much trying to keep up, we actually feel like we're going backwards, and it is genuinely depressing and stress inducing. But if you feel like you're going to get something useful done each day, you can genuinely feel a sense of empowerment and a sense of usefulness and a sense of happiness from achieving something. So make sure that you just have like one small goal that is your important thing for the day, that is achievable and will make an impactful step in the direction that you want to be going in. It will just genuinely make you happier, and that is a fact. Now, I might add that like deleting Instagram or Facebook from your phone and just reducing distractions in general will really help here. I personally had Instagram deleted for most of this year, which was absolutely lovely. But as I'm in the Himalayas, I have been posting a lot of my different adventures and have been using it most days, which has actually just added a background level of stress and like preoccupation and distraction, which has been kind of annoying. But at the same time, I am making lots of memories, so it's nice to be able to use it. But as soon as I get back to like more normal everyday life, like I definitely have no intention of keeping it on my phone, because it just eats at your attention in a way that I'm just not happy about. Anyway, the point here is to set yourself one important goal for the day and not overwhelm yourself, and try to remove some of the distractions in your life, because overall it will make you genuinely feel better and feel happier. And so reminding yourself that you will focus on this one thing today was a really powerful way to get happier. So thank you so much for listening. Those were 6 phrases to make you a happier person who has a better attitude and growth mindset and does more of the stuff that they love and feels grateful for it. If you enjoyed the episode, then please slam a good review onto Apple, Spotify, and or YouTube, because that would make me happier. But I'll be busy using these 6 phrases, so it's not the end of the world, because I'll be happy anyway. And then more importantly, remember that happiness and enjoyment is not a future goal. It is a way of life, it is a way of being, and it is something that happens every day. Don't put off being the person you want to be until you've achieved some kind of metric of success in the future. You need to start being the person you want to be now. So be kind to yourself, and whilst you're at it, be kind to someone else too. Thank you so much for listening.
Go you!
Your consistency to reach the end of an episode is legendary.
My hero!
If you have any ideas or feedback for the show, I'm always interested to hear from you.
You're the best!
Studies show we need time for information to sink in, so I'm going to give you a 5-second pause, silence, to reflect on one idea from the show before you jump back into your busy life. Ready and go.